Hey, I'm Kris with the Energy Department. I'm at the bulk plant today because today's topic is winter diesel fuel. We're gonna get into winter here pretty soon. The forecast looks to start getting into the teens a little bit. When we want to talk about what to do with diesel fuel as the weather gets cold. I have a guest this week. Mike Hildenbrand is our refined fuels premium diesel expert with Cenex. And then we have some announcements afterwards to catch you up with what's going on with Pro in the next couple of weeks. Mike, thanks for joining us here. It's November. The forecast says it's going to get a little colder here in the coming days. We've been kind of spoiled with a pretty mild winter so far. You know, the phrase we hear is gel, that I'm gelled up. When you think about a diesel fuel engine that is gelled up, what does that mean? What is this thing that we're trying to avoid?
Historically, we've heard about, you said it, fuel gelled up. That's the cloud point of the fuel. So that's the temperature. The fuel reaches a temperature where the wax crystals start to drop out of the fuel. We're a paraffinic crude, not to get too into the chemistry. I'm not your guy to do that anyway, but the paraffin waxes drop out of the fuel. If you can think of, like a candle, when it gets cold, that wax solidifies. When it's
Mhm.
warmer, that wax liquefies, right? That's kind of
Mhm.
what happens when it's gelling up. It reaches its cloud point and that wax drops out of the fuel.
So if it's warm, it's no problem, but as the temperature starts to drop, then we see those wax crystals. And then we talk about winter additive. Does the winter additive make the wax go away, or what's the goal with the winter additive?
Yeah, so let's talk temperature just a little bit as it starts to get cold, and we talk about that cloud point or that gelling point of the fuel. For number two diesel fuel, we talk about 14 degrees above is fuel temperature is the point at which those wax crystals, the cloud point of number two diesel fuel, 14 degrees, right? So
Mhm.
a winter additive, we call it a cold flow improver. The engineers call it a wax crystal modifier because that's essentially what it does. It takes that globular wax crystal and breaks it up into little tiny shard-like needle structures that will flow that filter. So we talk about cloud point and operability. You
Mhm.
lower the cloud point by adding number one because number one has a lower cloud point than number two. You
Mhm.
lower the operability with a winter additive because you don't get rid of that cloud, so to speak, right? That wax is still there. We've just changed the structure of the wax so it will flow that filter. So we've
Mhm.
made that fuel more operable or lowered its operability temperature.
And so if number two diesel, 14-degree cloud point, we add in the additive, the cold flow improver, the wax crystal modifier, how much operability, how many degrees do we gain by adding the cold flow?
I use 15 degrees to lower your operability. The experts will remind me it's between 10 and 15 could be, but I've
Sure.
always been fairly successful just using that 15-degree number. So if we start at 14 degrees with the number two cloud point and we add in that winter additive, we can look at an operability at that point with the additive of about one below.
So at least comfortably we can get teens, single digits, and feel pretty confident there with cold flow alone. If we want to go colder than that, the only way to get colder than that and still move is start blending in the number one, right?
Correct. Yeah, zero or low single digits below with cold flow improver. Yeah, once we have some nights coming colder than that, then then yeah, absolutely, then we're going to need number one. The one
Yeah.
consideration they need to think about is they've got equipment sitting there. Yes, we've blended down their bulk storage, but they've got that tractor semi skid loader that's sitting there, and that piece needs to get that blended fuel run into it, right, so that it will run when it gets cold.
Yeah.
But 3 degrees for every 10% of number one. So
Mm.
let's take a 50-50 blend with
Mhm.
our cold flow additive. If we were at one below operability, if we put in a 50% number one blend, that lowers our cloud point or our operability, therefore, another 15 degrees. So it's going to get us in that 16, 18 below range with a 50-50 blend. just to give
Sure.
you an idea.
And then what do you usually count on if we need worst case scenario and we go straight number one? How low do you think you can go confidently with that?
So straight number one, we like to figure between 30 and 40 below for a straight
Sure,
number one for
sure.
cloud point.
And anything below that, you're not going to be moving unless you've got livestock. If you're a glutton for punishment in that direction.
Should have hard conversations about what needs to operate that day. Maybe at those temperatures, we've got some warm storage we can tuck a piece of equipment into.
What's your history with that? Like, if you're able to shed, get it inside, keep it warm overnight, even if you're driving the equipment out into the coldest of the cold, if you're starting in a warm place, or at least, maybe it's only 10 below in the shop if it's a cold storage type situation, but it's out of the wind and you have that engine heat, once you get started, you're probably pretty good, right?
Yeah, we're returning hot fuel to the tank. So, and I get this question a lot. Well, I don't blend because I park in warm storage. Parking in warm storage is amazing. I'm still a believer in some blend.
Mm,
I think you coined the phrase, it's cheap insurance, right?
yeah.
I mean, what if something happens and you have to shut that skid loader off outside?
Yeah, and we've got a couple Cenex stations with Ruby Fieldmaster, the dyed off-road fuel on right there at the pump. And so we've switched those over to a 30% number one blend. We've got school buses, we've got other, people that are getting ready for moving snow someday. Hopefully not, but adding 30% number one took the pump price up 10 cents. And man, a dime a gallon is not a lot of money to gain another 9, 10 degrees of operability and get you into some pretty significant negative temps.
And I know we're so grateful, right, that you run a good blended fuel at the pump. And I hope it's something your members in the motoring public will drive out of their way for and will pay for, because I know it's hard for you to look competitive when people are just comparing price signs, right?
Yeah, and at those same stations, they were set up in a really smart way where we've got a big tank that we run number two with cold flow, and then we've got a smaller tank where we're able to offer straight number one. So customers can tailor their blend based on the forecast for those, especially those trucks that are running every day. And to your point, if you've got that skid loader that you're going to need when it's cold, yeah, get the blend in there early. But if you got, a guy who's calling grain every day, you can see the cold coming and kind of tailor it, leave a little space in your tank if you need to splash in some number one there to get yourself colder. It's really nice flexibility. It's a cool thing that we're able to offer.
Yeah. Very
Well,
good.
Mike, as always, thank you for your time. Thanks for your investment in our cooperative team to help us, know what we're talking about and increase our knowledge base and your availability to our customer base. It's the second time we've had you on. Just appreciate the wisdom and the insight, the knowledge that you can bring to us. So thank you.
I'm happy to do it. I'm grateful for you and your work in the country and your team at Pro Co-op, and I'm grateful for your end user customers. Right, they are the
Mhm.
reason that we do this day in and day out. So you're very welcome.
In the coming weeks, December 11th, we have our annual meeting. It'll be held at the Shores in Emmitsburg this year. Try to move it a little further north so our whole region can attend. There will be equity checks available. There's a gift, there's a supper. You'll hear financial results and show up. We'd love to see you there. We'd love to have conversations. Another event, January 14th, our market outlook, the winter market outlook. Always well attended, and appreciate your attendance in the past. We'll be talking grain markets, energy markets. We'll have lunch there. Again, that'll be at the Shores in Emmitsburg and hopefully be easy access. Hopefully we get a good weather day in January. You never know. And lastly, something we've been working really hard on as a team internally, our My Pro app. This is a mobile app and a desktop browser version that you'll be able to interact with us online in a mobile way on the computer, see your account balances, make payments, see your transactions, a lot of functionality. See your grain contracts is another thing. A lot of functionality that'll make it easier for you to understand, see, and do business with us. We're about to launch here in the next 10 to 15 days. You'll be hearing more from us, I promise. You'll see some emails and some other communication. When the time is right, get you onboarded to that, and we're very excited for the potential to help us be accurate to you and you to see what's going on, and some communication tools we're really excited about. So thanks for stopping.